Welcome to the Dream Machine. My name is Arun.
Patricia.
Hey Patricia, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, just past Thanksgiving, now just waiting for Christmas. But in the meantime, we'll continue with our regularly scheduled Dream Machine.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess to say, I've only just as this broadcaster, we've only just come 20 minutes away from actually watching this film, and also had a chance to gather my thoughts. So you could say that there's not. I guess you could say in this episode we're not going to be horsing around.
No, we're not. So let's galleon wade so we can be able to journey into the West and find out more about this film.
Here we go. So, Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, or just Spirit depending on where you're from, is a 2002 animated film that was released by DreamWorks Pictures. It follows the adventures of a young Mustang stallion with a spirit that won't give up as he struggles for his freedom. And yeah, I think that's kind of the theme of the movie. But I have to say, storyline-wise, this is a kind of a choppy adventure.
I can understand why. I mean, first of all, there's little to no talking in terms of like animals that you would expect from a lot of other, movies involving with animals. And there's not really much of a character other than Spirit, where the only kind of narration that you're ever going to get is with Matt Damon. And for the most part, it's just utilizing quiet moments as opposed to if you were to compare this movie to like maybe Madagascar, which we'll be talking about much later on, it's definitely a lot more subtle and subdued. And yeah, the plot does go all over the place at points, but I think that for the sake of trying to experience the adventures of a horse, it's understandable. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Black Beauty in a sense, in which that horse went through many adventures until eventually having a happy ending. So same thing happens with Spirit.
Yeah, I think story-wise, I mean, obviously the big thing about this is obviously the dialogue. They're kind of going for kind of like a Wall-E kind of like theme of the movie, but they kind of like go really hardcore with it. And one of the reasons why I think they've gone in this direction is because they've said to themselves, okay, we've been through the Prince of Egypt, we've been through Joseph King of Dreams, we've been through obviously the Road to El Dorado, and one of the main themes that seems to be going through this kind of genre of film is the fact that none of the animals talk. So they've decided to go with that whole thing and say, okay, well, yeah, we like this idea of spirit and we like this idea of like animals kind of like interacting with other in that game. But the one thing that we probably don't want to make them do is basically talk. Which, unfortunately, with a film like this, I think you can see in certain scenes you kind of wish there was dialogue there to kind of pass things around.
Although little bit out of place because it's set very grounded. So if they were to talk, it would feel like it just jumped the shark. I mean, I think that with something like Pocahontas, in which is very spiritual, then I can understand maybe where the animals can talk, but not something like Spirit. I mean, maybe if they were to set it in a way that it makes sense for the animals to talk, sure, but I think they were trying to go for a more realistic way. So this movie was essentially written by John Fusco, who's known for writing a lot of other Western movies, such as Young Guns 1 and 2, Hidalgo, and The Highwayman, and he's currently the creator of Marco Polo. So it was an idea from Jeffrey Katzenberg that they wanted to do a Western, and it took about a couple of years to do. And yeah, nothing too crazy behind the scenes compared to when we discussed about The Croods, but yeah, it was a modest movie that was moderately successful, and we'll talk about much later on about how this movie spun off into an animated series that I didn't even know existed until just a few days ago.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess when we talk about the acts of the film, so I mean, in the first act, I don't know, I just feel like Spirit's kind of like upbringing is kind of rushed in the first lot, and they kind of like say, okay, well, here he is as a fowl, here he is having some fun moments, and then all of a sudden he's grown up and now he's leading the pack. And
Yeah, they should have definitely taken the Bambi route, in which the first half would have dedicated to him as a fowl, and then maybe the second half would have dedicated to him all grown up and leading the pack, and then eventually all the rough stuff happens to him. I've seen a lot of comparisons between this movie and Tarzan for some reason, and I can understand why. Both movies, you have a young character, and they eventually lead, and then a lot of rough stuff happens to them, and apparently the music from Brian Williams is compared to the music from Phil Collins, in which the music is telling the story of what's going on with the characters.
yeah, I just think that in the first instance, I mean, I was looking at it thinking, this is the way Joseph King of Dreams. I mean, this the Joseph King of Dreams frame that they did in the first act. I think this actually fits better with this movie than it does with where they went with Joseph. And the reason I say that is because I mean, wouldn't it have been better if they had this, this very free spirited animal that didn't really understand kind of like the rules, if you will. And so he had to basically go out into the world to kind of learn about how to be a well-trained horse, if you will, and then he would come back and lead his pack out of danger.
Oh, I see what you're trying to say. So basically, very similar to Joseph King of Dreams, in which he was just a very sheltered, spoiled kid who was loved by his father. And then when he was sold into slavery, he learned how to grow up.
Exactly.
So essentially, if Spirit were to be raised by his mother and the pack, and he would be very content with himself and very sheltered with nothing bad happening. And then when he's taken over by the U.S. Army to learn how to become a military horse, then he would start growing up into a more mature horse who's ready to lead the pack.
Yeah, like I mean, I wouldn't say that's a familiarizing story, but I mean, if you think about it, like, here's like a kid, he's really wild, crazy, he doesn't know the rules, he's upsetting everybody, like, that pack of buffaloes that he met at the beginning, like, imagine if, like, the tipping point was, like, pissing them off, and then, like, they chase him, like, away, and, like, he gets separated from his pack, and then he gets captured by the U.S. Army, and then he's trained up to be like a well-disciplined horse. And then then when
I
he
can see that
escapes,
because
yeah.
it's very similar to how Joseph, pushed too far with his brothers, and then eventually he was sold, or when Moses accidentally killed the Egyptian, and then he had to run away to the desert where he learned how to be a shepherd. So I guess you're trying to say that it needed that 1-2 punch of drama in order for it to lead over more progressively and more naturally.
Yeah, I think that was what the first act needed. So, but anyway, we went into that. We clambered into that situation. So, we end up with a situation where Spirit gets captured by the U.S. Army, and then he's and then do like these shenanigans, if you will, of trying to break his spirit, if you will, and they totally fail in all instances. And then we're introduced to our antagonist of the film. I assume our antagonist of the film, the ruthless Colonel. And
Yeah.
who's basically
He definitely kind of reminds me of he definitely reminds me of the general from Dances with Wolves in a sense.
yeah. But here's the thing, like we're really going to be kind of. I know we're going to be deciding like this. Here's this Native American, and here's this colonel, and here's this soldier. No one has any names in this film.
I mean, the only one who has a name other than Spirit is the Native American, whose name is Little Creek.
Little Creek. Okay, yeah, that totally passed me by. Like,
Yeah, and the female horse that Spirit meets up with is named Rain.
Rain.
So yeah,
okay.
other than that, I mean, you have to, in order for you to look up these names, you either have to really pay attention to the movie or just look up the credits.
IMDb is your friend. Yeah, this is the one. How terrible is that? Okay, before you go into this film, you have to read some notes. Like, it's kind of like, this is a movie, not a debate. It's like, it's like, oh my goodness. But yeah, okay. So now that we know 3 of the characters going into this, so Spirit escapes from the U.S. Army after obviously being shaved of his mane, and also gets out with the help of Little Creek, the Native American, and then all of a sudden he gets captured again. And so then he gets taken to the Native American tribe, trying to use the right terminology here. What was it? The Lakota tribe, I think it was.
Yes, it is the Lakota tribe. Yes, it is the Lakota tribe.
Yeah. So the Lakota tribe take him to this to their tribe, and so then he's tied up with Rain, who is the character then we're introduced then, and then kind of weirdly they decide to let them go, and Rain is going to teach Spirit how to be, I don't know, just kind of hang out with her, I guess.
I
So that,
guess so, yeah. I guess maybe to be a little bit more bred into being with people because Spirit throughout his entire life was in the wild. So I guess this is sort of to teach him, kind of like the little girl in the Jungle Book where she teaches Mowgli how to be with the village sort of way. And then they start having this relationship with one another. So it kind of like tries to lighten up the mood that we just saw a few minutes ago with Spirit being captured and the colonel basically trying to breed him as a military horse, and then we had the escape with Little Creek and Spirit, and then finally he gets back home. So yeah, it definitely goes through a bunch of tonal shifts. It starts off really happy, then it starts off really sad, then it starts off really happy, then it starts off really depressing, then it starts off really happy, then it's really somber, and then very scary, and then it leads into a happy note.
yeah, and like you're literally tying the horses together. It's like you're literally tying the knot with these two horses. It's like
I get it.
I know. It's there. It's pretty much there. If this movie did better than it actually did, I swear that would have become a meme. Like you ever seen that Now Kiss meme? That between when people like shipping characters together. I swear if this film became more famous than it actually was, then I swear that would become a meme on the internet, like literally tying couples together.
Maybe I don't know. I think that Shrek pretty much overtook the meme sense
Oh yeah, it did.
and the B movie. God,
And the B movie, yeah. Well,
but I don't think this movie really is like meme territory unless it was like unintentional. But I think that what it's trying to build up is like because this movie has no dialogue, it's trying to let the atmosphere and the emotions of the faces and the way that the characters move in order to tell the story, which is very smart, by the way, because most DreamWorks movies leading afterwards would be a lot more in your face. So seeing something like Spirit, after being very well known for like Madagascar and Shrek and Kung Fu Panda and their later movies such as Boss Baby and Trolls and Home, seeing Spirit is pretty refreshing.
yeah. Okay, so there's one flaw I want to point out in this film, and do forgive us because neither of us have. I'm assuming none of us have Native American heritage. But do the Lakotas speak English?
I mean, I take it that at this point in time, if we're assuming that this does take place around the late 1860s, then I think that because the Native Americans have already sort of moved into America with the Continental Railroad and capturing most Native Americans and bringing them over to reform schools so that they can be able to learn how to speak the English language, then at this point, yes, maybe some Native Americans were able to learn to speak English to make peace with the soldiers that came on by, but I mean, those are like for maybe reformed Native Americans. If these are wild Native Americans that have never ever interacted with another Native American who spoke English or even with Americans, then no.
Hmm. Okay, so we go into this bit where we've now got the love interest and Spirit together, and then Spirit, well, Little Creek pretty much accepts that he's never going to ride Spirit at all, and so lets him go into to go find his herd again, and invites Rain to come with her. But then obviously then we get to the point where the U.S. Army come and attack the Lakota driver. I think again. I guess
Yeah.
maybe they attacked them once before and captured Little Creek. I don't know, but
Maybe they caught Little Creek. Maybe he was out somewhere and then they captured him, and maybe they were following his trail over to the village.
maybe. So there's all battle that ensues, and so Spirit helps in the fight, and but then as Little Creek and Rain go try and attack the Colonel shoots one of them, I think, or the shot misses by, I don't know. It's like it's kind of not refined because I only imagine Rain got injured from falling over the waterfall and not actually being shot. Because so I don't know if Little Creek himself got shot, or I mean, it's just kind of like
I think it was Rain who got shot.
Okay, it just looked I don't know if the bullet had missed or like I don't know if they're like playing up to like you don't know which one's been shot, And so,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I think it's insinuating that Rain got shot, and then afterwards, that's when she, fell onto the waterfall.
yeah, maybe. So, yeah. So Stewart gets captured again by the U.S. Army, and this time he's brought to a train to help out with the railroad.
Yeah,
And
the
then
railroad. This is when they were building the railroad.
and so then he this bit's kind of confusing because he kind of gives up at this point, which
I mean,
doesn't.
I take it that this is like where I'm sorry for the bad pun. This is where his spirit gets broken. This is when he's pretty much at his lowest point. He thinks that there's no escape afterwards. He's being led by these people to build the railroad. He sees a whole bunch of other horses being abused and then dragged when they can't work anymore. It's actually pretty sad. It's probably one of the most depressing moments in the entire movie.
Yeah, it is. It's I don't know, like the fact that they've played him up to this point, like I really thought that. I don't know. I just feel like they hadn't done enough to kind of break him in a way, and
Sure, sure.
I thought this
I
was a
can
bit.
understand.
I thought this bit was a bit weak. To be honest.
Maybe if he went through more stuff and then he went to his lowest point, then I can see that. Kind of reminds me a little bit of An American Tale, in which he's trying to look for his family and he goes through many obstacles until eventually he ends up in the orphanage. And then, the little mouse says, guess what? You don't have a family anymore. They don't love you. If they did love you, then they would be with you. And then Fievel pretty much just gives up and he sleeps with the orphans. And then when he's wandering around, that's when he finds his family. But before that, that was when he reached his lowest point because of everything that he went through. He went through a lot in the movie.
Oh yeah, he did, and so I guess maybe counting that, I guess maybe that is a way to kind of make him get him to his lowest point, I guess. But I don't know. It was at this point, like, given that the story was a little bit all over the place, a little bit like yeah, the bit with the with the you're trying to fit in the relationship with Little Creek, and then you're trying to fit in the love interest with Rain, and then all of a sudden, the fact that he's trying to get back to his herd kind of takes a back seat. At this point, and so it's. I mean, you would have thought that the herd would have gone looking for him, wouldn't you think?
So maybe we would have had a scene where the mother and the herd would have tried to look for him.
Yeah,
And maybe kind of like, lead up to where his trail was, like maybe they would wander over to some parts in the railroad, or maybe like see the distance of where the army is being located, or maybe where the Lakota tribe is at. Definitely going back to An American Tale again, where Fievel's trying to find his family. You kind of see his family in the distance at the same location, and you're just saying, like, turn around, he's right over there, Fievel. So
it's for me, like, the movie's only an hour and 23 minutes. I mean, if they cut that story out for time, like, it's a pretty unnecessary cut. Like, it would have been,
maybe the movie could have been a little longer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I think they could have stretched it to about an hour and a half, and no one would have kind of batted an eye. Like, sure. I don't know. So we get to the point where they're carrying that train up the, and I don't know if that actually happened in real life or not, whether they use massive amounts of horses to carry like a massive steam train or anything like that. So
I mean, I'm sure they had to. I mean, I'm sure that they also had like a group of people, and this is when the Chinese immigrants also came to, help with the building of the railroad so they can get better opportunities. But so yeah, I take it that was also helped as well. This was, this was like during the time of the Industrial Revolution. So this is when technology was slowly coming up into its booming phase.
Mm-hmm. So he, in this instance, he finally finds his spirit again, I guess, and then he obviously inspires the horses to try and halt the railroad by setting them free, and then obviously kicking the train over, and then him being chased after it, and then he gets to when the trains explode when they collide, and then he come out. And this is the bit when Spirit kind of loses me as a protagonist, because he kind of through his reckless actions, he caused a massive forest fire and caused a load of furry critters to flee.
Yeah, just want to let everybody know, for anybody who's going through the California fires, our thoughts are with you.
Yeah, I actually want to say that too as well. But I mean, yeah, I just think you kind of, I don't know, like, I felt that bit was kind of like, because in Bambi, right, like, the humans were always like, the enemy in this, and when they started that massive fire, it's like, yeah, that was a reckless thing to do, and it's obviously continue to portray humans as the antagonist of the movie. This, you kind of can't really say you're that much of a great protagonist when you're causing your own destruction and causing your own problems in a way. I think people would argue like, well, he wasn't in control of the situation, stuff like that. But I don't know. It kind of makes him look pretty reckless.
I guess that's
In a
fair.
way.
Maybe if a human was involved with like maybe chasing spirit, then maybe if the train went out of control, then I can see that happening.
Maybe. So, Little Creek finds him, rescues him out of that mess, and then they have that play fight in the river, and
Yeah, trying to basically lighten up the mood again after
yeah,
seeing Spirit working in the Transcontinental Railroad and the whole fire thing.
yeah. This movie's taking antidepressants, isn't it? Like he's like, oh, he's getting too depressing. Time for another dose. It's kind of like
Yeah, I wish they would have taken the Don Bluth route, in which throughout the entire movie it was mostly depressing, and then it starts getting a lot more lighthearted towards the end because it's able to build up a very consistent tone. It makes you appreciate everything that's going on. It's very real in a sense. And then finally, when you get to that final scene in which, everything is going to turn out well in the end, it definitely does give you a sense of satisfaction.
By the way, throughout this entire movie up to this point, we've been serenaded by Brian Adams.
Yes.
And what do we think of that? I mean, I guess you could say, like, I know this is a 2000s. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
Brian Adams was pretty, early 90s at the most for me. Like,
Yeah,
maybe later
Even South Park made a joke about Brian Adams in the movie.
yeah, it's like, so it's like, I don't know, like, I guess Brian Adams, I don't mind some of the things that he does, and, on top of that as well, I mean, was he, I'm trying to think what, other things he did besides, Spirit movie-wise, like, I'm sure he did some other work as well, but,
I mean, yeah, Brian Adams, he has released a few albums as well. He's mostly known as like a Canadian singer.
yeah.
So, yeah, personally for me, I don't really know too much about the guy other than just a handful of songs.
All I know
So,
is that he did the theme for Robin Hood, King of Thieves, I think it was
oh
that,
yeah.
and then
I know what
also
you're talking about.
he helped Roger Waters do the Wall at Berlin. I remember that from a while back ago. But in regards to this him doing this movie, I mean, he kind of makes it look like him. At times, he kind of makes you kind of look at it and think, "Am I watching a Brian Adams music video right now?" Like,
Again, I can understand why a lot of people compare this to Tarzan because Phil Collins, when he sings his songs, it definitely feels like the movie is trying to ride in with the songs that are going on with the scenes, as opposed to like the scenes telling the story. The music is telling the story. So I guess maybe this is what maybe Jeffrey Katzenberg wanted to capture the essence of Phil Collins, hiring Brian Adams to sing over scenes of Spirit because the animals don't talk. It's like, oh, we can't make our characters talk as much, so let's make the music talk and tell the audience about what's happening.
yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird because it's like they had Matt Damon be the voice, kind of like the inner dialogue of Spirit, and
Right.
at times it kind of makes me feel like why don't you just get Brian Adams to do it? Like
Brian Adams to be the narrator.
I don't know, like he's pretty much singing what he's thinking, pretty much. So you might as well
Yeah,
have him
yeah, yeah.
talking for him as well. And like I don't know, maybe they tried to cast him and he didn't sound all that good. So that's the reason they brought in Matt Damon. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, Matt Damon was becoming a more prominent actor at the time. So, he was in Good Will Hunting, Saving Private Ryan, Talented Mr. Ripley. So maybe, this was definitely to, kickstart his career and also, Titan AE as well. So
Yeah,
maybe, he was
he
just
was
that
also
popular.
he's in the Mars film as well, like The Martian. As well, yeah. So I think, so imagine how much money has the U.S. government spent trying to save Matt Damon?
I
When
don't
you, when you
know.
think when you think about it, like he was saving Private Ryan, he was in The Martian, and they have to go rescue him too. Like, yeah, he's. I think that's gonna be Matt Damon's thing now. I think it's just gonna be he's in trouble, and then we have to go dig him out of it. I guess, or he has to save
Yeah,
himself.
although to be fair, he although to be fair, Matt Damon did help the girl in what you call it, that Western movie a few years back.
Well,
So
actually,
I think
just thinking about it. Here's another one. Like, how much gold must the U.S. Army at the time must have spent trying to capture that horse? I think like all the soldiers trying to. Oh my goodness, it goes on and on and on. But
Sure,
yeah.
sure. But, to be fair, I guess maybe, because the story is just played out in a way that the audience has to figure it out because there's no talking. So it's either the movement or the emotions of the characters or the music. You just kind of like piece the story yourself, which, some people said that it should have been a lot more subtle, like with Studio Ghibli when Miyazaki does a lot of quiet moments so that the audience can be able to breathe and take in the atmosphere. So I guess, I guess maybe in a sense, maybe Katzenberg at this point in time was, even though he was saying like, oh, screw you, Disney, I can make movies just as good as you guys. I felt like there's still a little chip on his shoulder that he was trying to also do what Disney was doing. Because
Yeah,
there's definitely some elements of Disney in here.
I think I don't know. There's just part of me that I feel like he's been restricted by the world that he's created by him. He created himself. Because at least in Disney, I mean, there are some inconsistencies to the animal characters. Iago in Aladdin talked. And like he was also a driver in the story, and I don't
Yeah,
know, like
exactly. And Abu didn't talk.
Abu didn't talk. Yeah, I admit that, and but it does make me wonder, like maybe if like there was like not a lot of dialogue between the animals, but maybe one, maybe two. A little bit of
Well, I mean,
dialogue.
I guess it made sense for Iago because he's a parrot,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe over time, he started learning to talk. It's very similar to Polly, in which he was a parrot who said simple words, and then eventually he started talking like a person. So I can see Iago learning how to talk, and then all the other animals don't talk. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe I guess it's kind of difficult for if you have the Wild West, which personally for me, the Wild West is probably my least favorite setting in any movie because I just find those to be so limiting and boring. If it was a little bit more lively, like a place that you can do a lot more with, then maybe it could work with talking animals. But I think with here, I don't know, just a talking animal, it just wouldn't fit. It's very similar to Pocahontas, in which, if the world does not have a sense of animals talking, then they shouldn't talk. It would be out of place.
Yeah. Well, at least they didn't do like in Detroit Become Human, where the androids could like talk with each other like psychopathically or something like that, telepathically through
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah.
At least they didn't do that with the animals, at least. So
Sure, sure.
I
That would make sense.
no, it wouldn't at all. And yeah.
Yeah,
So
this is why Pokemon makes sense because there are psychic animals and they can talk telepathically, so that makes sense.
yeah, that does make sense. So, they nearly get captured again by the U.S. Army, and with the colonel leading them, and it's a big coincidence that once again he's confronted with Little Greek and Spirit both at the same time. So there's this massive chase scene, and then some horses get freed because their riders are incompetent and can't ride them. So that happens, and then there's the massive jump at the end, which. I'm glad, as far as I'm aware, there's been no physicists who have been analysing, seeing if they can actually make the jump or not. Or kind of like, Dwayne Johnson in Skyscraper. Yeah, like they say you just fall from his death. But,
Right.
yeah, it's like, so they do like the whole majestic jump over there. And you'd think he'd land well as well, to kind of like to have everyone in awe. But instead, he they even just crash on the floor and roll over and stuff. And I don't know whether
I guess I think they were trying to make it more realistic. It's like, oh, because this movie's so grounded, if he's going to jump, then he's not going to land perfectly.
oh yeah,
Trying to get the tension going.
yeah, it's like at the same time, it's an animated movie. Like you want to leave people somewhat in awe, but I don't know when that happened and then just kind of crashed to the ground. It kind of felt like an episode of Family Guy all of a sudden. Like yeah, there was just that kind of comedic. I think it was supposed to be kind of. It kind of felt like it was a scene that's supposed to be played for comedy rather than kind of like played for amazement, if you will. So
Sure.
then we get the interesting scene where they're about to get shot, but then the colonel decides no and says no, he deserves to be free. And
Which is weird.
yeah, I don't know if that was kind of done to kind of maybe play to like a sequel, maybe like the Civil War happens, and maybe like the North and the South maybe kind of like fight, and maybe the Colonel and Spirit kind of meet up again, and then they have to kind of like fight to I don't know protect the Union or something like that, and
I
for the
don't
sequel.
know, but yeah, I mean, comparing this to Fox and the Hound, in which, Amos Slade had been trying to capture and kill Todd throughout the entire movie because he injured his dog Chief, and then at the end of the movie, when they were trying to capture Todd, he gets attacked by a bear, and Todd. Alongside with Copper, they fight the bear and they defeat him. And then, just when Amos is about to shoot Todd and Copper gets in the way, he then realizes what he's doing is wrong. Not only is, shooting him going to do nothing, but also he just saved his life from being killed by a bear. So there's a moment in which, okay, I can understand why Amos decided not to kill Todd. But here, is there any part of the movie in which maybe the Colonel had a change of heart?
I don't know. Like, I mean, it would have been nice to have a scene. It's like where he'd had like second thoughts, where they're kind of like walking around thinking, oh, was what I did the right thing? And
Yeah,
maybe,
I was thinking maybe, I think that maybe it would have been a little bit better if maybe Spirit and the Colonel were at the train, before he catches fire. Like maybe, the Colonel was trying to like, lead Spirit into like, building the train, railroad, and then something happens with the train and then everybody runs away, but then the Colonel gets injured and then Spirit like saves his life and then like gets him away from the fire, and maybe like puts him off to the side, and maybe when he's at his when we get to the final moment, and maybe he's like, oh, I remember that they saved my life from the fire, so I'm not going to kill you guys.
yeah,
Maybe that could have happened.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe even if he like if Spirit saved the life of Little Creek and the Colonel witnessed it all, and like maybe he was like, oh hey, maybe this animal is more tame than I thought. Like I don't know. Like maybe if they like played like. Here's the thing, like I don't know if this film needed needed an antagonist at this point, like because like I mean, wouldn't it have been better if like the Colonel was kind of like seen as like a necessary evil, if you will, to kind of tame Spirit? But mind you, I'm kind of going in my own idea of what the story should have been compared to what the what we ended up with.
Or maybe
Uh,
it would have been more of a subtle villain, like in Bambi, how Man was the villain, but you never see him.
yeah, but I don't know. Like, I think he would have been. I think he probably would have been better if this film did not really have an antagonist at all. In a way, maybe I don't know. Like,
So maybe you're trying to say is like the struggle of a horse, trying to find out who he is until eventually he does.
yeah. Well, mind you, like I keep forget. I just completely forgot about the fact that the army tried to kill the Lakota tribe. So maybe he was probably necessary as an antagonist in the whole build up to it. Maybe I don't know.
Sure.
But yeah, so that's goes towards nearly the end of the film, and then Little Creek decides to release Rain from the Lakota tribe, and so they go off. I don't know if that was just done for kind of like plot convenience. I guess.
I
And,
have no idea.
yeah.
I guess maybe because he saw them together, and maybe he decided, oh,
Did
you
he?
guys deserve to run. I don't know. I mean, if he did tie them together, I guess they could. There could be an assumption that maybe they were doing something, and maybe he was like putting two and two together. I don't know.
I don't know if I missed the scene where like maybe like he saw them. I would like to have.
I don't think. No, I don't
Was there
think
a
so. I
scene
think
where
it
he
was
saw them together and then he said to himself, maybe they got something going on with each other? I don't
maybe.
know.
I don't know.
Okay. So they're together. They go find the herd, and yeah, he pretty much reassumes leadership of the pack, pretty much.
Yeah.
And
That easy.
yeah, that easy. And and also the mom's still alive. Like
I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, how long has Spirit been gone?
well, he hadn't been gone. He hadn't been gone a couple of days, I think.
Okay, so if he was gone for a couple of days, sure, but yeah, I mean it's pretty convenient if you ask me.
Yeah, like and top of that, they make America seem. I mean, assuming it's in America, like very.
Yes, of
Oh,
course, it's in
sorry. Yeah,
America.
it's in America. Yeah, sorry about that.
I don't remember in history about the U.S. Army taking over Pakistan
Well,
in the 19th century.
okay, so stupid comments. I admit it, but yeah, just they make it sound so small. Like the way that they kind of like just flip the scenes across, and then all of a sudden they're there. It's kind of like
Yeah, isn't the Wild West supposed to be roaming?
yeah, like you think there's a lot of adventure out there, and all the films that we've had about the Wild West, over the years, they make it sound like like adventure can be around every single corner. And apparently, according to Spirit's Stallion of the Cimarron, apparently it just blows away like within a couple of seconds of scenes.
I
Like
mean, I could probably make the argument if we were taken a little bit later in the timeline, like around the early 1900s, in which more people have settled in, then I could see that. But here, at this point in time where it's still roaming, then yeah, it should have been a little bit bigger.
yeah. So I mean, going back to I mean, obviously that's the story, and so we kind of reached the end of that. But there's one thing I do want to comment on, and for the time, I'm actually quite impressed with the computer imagery in this, and because what we were, I mean, graphics I think at the time were not all that great. I think in 2002, and so for me to watch Spirit and watch this animated, computer generation, and kind of riding through it, like yeah, I think it was pretty ambitious at the time to kind of do stuff like that. I think at the time. So, but I just think that for me that I loved how it's animated. I love how it's drawn, and I love how beautiful they made it all look. And the characters are well drawn as well. You can actually tell that you would think that this would be in the same universe as like the Prince of Egypt, Joseph King of Dreams, and all the rest of them. And
Yeah,
so
I think so. I mean, you can make the argument that, hey, maybe, very similar to Pixar, maybe DreamWorks takes place in the same universe. We did discuss about in Monsters versus Aliens that there's a Shrek billboard. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, Spirit would take place around like Prince of Egypt or Joseph King of Dreams, but instead it would be a different, timeline, and it would be a different location.
yeah, I'm pretty glad that they didn't go around the scenes like the Native Americans, like one just conveniently looks like Moses, or one conveniently
That would not make any sense
no, it
whatsoever.
wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. They just kind of throw in these, kind of like the way they throw in Belle, like you can see her walking like across the street in the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like,
Well,
they didn't
I
do
can
any
I
of
can I
that.
can argue with that. Number one, it takes place in France, and Beauty and the Beast takes place in France. Hunchback of Notre Dame takes place in Paris, so that cameo makes sense.
Yeah.
The one that kind of doesn't make sense to me, if we're going to talk about like Easter eggs, is the magic carpet being in Princess and the Frog. Like how?
Yeah, that doesn't make so much sense either. But
But it doesn't
well,
really matter. I mean, Easter egg.
Mind you, Scar ends up in as a headpiece for Hercules. Like that makes totally no. And I was like that mind you, we're going way across from Spirit there, but
Yeah, but
I guess that's one thing we can appreciate Spirit for. At least it retains a lot of its originality. Compared
Sure.
to other movies that kind of like want to really stick in their cameos, if you will, like what's his name from Finding Nemo.
Oh, are you talking
Marvin,
about
yeah, Marvin,
Marlin?
being shoved into as a toy in Monsters Inc. and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. So I guess you can appreciate Spirit on that level, like it's its own thing.
Yeah, I don't think DreamWorks was pulling off the Easter eggs until much later.
No, I don't think so. So
Yeah, I think
so
that for the most part, I can understand why a lot of people call this movie underrated because, one, it was one of the last 2D animated films that DreamWorks did right before they would just go full 3D. Number two, it's definitely a lot more subtle and quiet than most DreamWorks movies, where they're always in your face and very satirical with pop culture references and such. So, just seeing a movie like this, it's something that you can definitely appreciate, which I definitely understand. I guess for a lot of people, something like Spirit, it would be a movie that you would kind of put into the background and just appreciate the beautiful animation and the simple setting of the Wild West, and the fact that the animals don't talk. You just let the mood and the music do all the storytelling.
yeah. One thing, I think one thing that kind of held it back a little bit, I think from being, I think somewhat successful, was the marketing. I think was wrong, and the reason I say that is because the final scene in Spirit, where the big moment when he jumps over that, they actually spoil that in the trailers here in the UK.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, they did. So they actually in the trailers when they were advertising Spirit, even on not just in the movie vids but on TV, they actually showed that scene. to get people in
I think
there.
I remember one of the things from the trailer that was kind of marketed wrong was that they put in a lot of rock music, and some of it didn't really, weren't featured in the movie, if I can remember. Trying to make it like all cool, like, hey, there's this horse and he's a rebellious horse and stuff like that. I think there was like one song that was featured in the trailers that wasn't in the movie, if I could remember. I don't know, but yeah, they try to make Spirit seemed like a badass horse and very rebellious when he only gets that way when he is taken by the US Army.
I know, it's like the only here's the thing, like there's part of me that believes that probably was what they were originally going for, but then the script went through several rewrites, and then all of a sudden he just became like the head of the tribe who just got captured. And like
Maybe.
they again it goes. I think the weakest part I think of the film is the first act, where they kind of build him up too quickly, and they just kind of like shoehorned in that he was captured by humans, and then he ended up in this situation. I think they should have really have gone further with the he's this rebellious kid, and he doesn't live by any rules, like I said at the beginning, and then he gets captured and then gets treated, he gets teach some respect by the U.S. Army and then by the Lakota tribe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe if Joseph King of Dreams didn't do the same storyline, then I think that it could have worked well in Spirit. Kind of like Assassin's Creed 2, where Ezio was just this spoiled brat,
Hmm.
and then when he see his family get killed, then he starts turning into a real assassin when he gets a lot older. So, yeah, I think that if Joseph King of Dreams didn't exist, then I can see that plot in Spirit and done much better.
Yeah. So this film took $80 million to make, and which I don't think is that pretty expensive for a 2D animation film.
It's
It seems pretty
pretty,
average.
it's pretty average.
Okay.
I think that it's $10 million more than Prince of Egypt.
Yeah, I did say that
So
because obviously Chicken Run took about $60 million to make, which
yeah, that was stop motion though.
yeah, we mind you, stop motion takes a long time. I bet that animation also in itself takes a long time to produce as well. But
Yeah, that's true. But how much clay can you get as opposed to like
well,
paper
it's
and
it's not just the
constant
clay.
drawing?
It's the it's doing the voices. It's doing the also you have to do the storyboarding for it as well. So like there is an
Yeah, yeah,
aspect of
true.
like drawing in it as well. So I don't know. I thought there'd be a more budget intense. I thought there'd be more budget intensity. I think in a stop motion than there would be in an animated film. But that's just me. And
Sure.
as well, they had the computer technology at the time to kind of like take shortcuts.
Yeah, they
Right.
did as well. And we'll definitely be talking about the computer shortcuts when we discuss about Sinbad.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that. So 80 million was it take to make, and it took home, I believe, it was about somewhere around about the $122 million region. I
Yes.
think so. It only slightly made more than its budget, which but still, they still wanted to ride this thing through. Like they wanted to. I don't know if they made money back on the VHS and the DVD releases, I guess, and
Maybe.
then eventually it was released on Blu-ray. So
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's and on top of that as well. When they did the Blu-ray version of it in 2014, apparently it also included movie tickets to Penguins of Madagascar.
Yeah.
So they did it as kind of like a thing to kind of like also get the. It's kind of like the way that they shoot in the Halo 3 beta to get people to purchase copies of Crackdown. So yeah, I guess that was kind of the same deal, I guess. So, but yeah, that was Spirit. And,
Yeah,
yeah,
and right before we discuss about what's going to be for next time, there's an animated series on Spirit.
yeah, there is. And so I've never watched the animated series. So have you seen any bits of it? Or?
I've seen bits and pieces of it on Facebook because that's where I first learned about that there is a Spirit animated series, and I had to look this up. So apparently, it was released around like 2016, like close to what, like almost 15 years before, after the movie came out, and it focuses on a girl named Lucky, I think, and it focuses on Spirit, but it's actually Spirit and Rain's son, who just so happens to also be named Spirit. And it takes place in a small town, like in the West, and they have a whole bunch of like other characters as well. And it's like almost from what I've seen in like the trailers and stuff, it's like they're focusing more on the girl character, not on the horse. And this thing has been going on for 6 seasons and it's still running, which is
Wow.
shocking to me because it's lasted longer than with the Cruise animated series, the Puss in Boots animated series, the How to Train Your Dragon animated series, and the Penguins of Madagascar animated series.
Okay, and if anyone thinks, somewhere down the line we're going to do a vlog of Spirit, I think, we've still got a lot of stuff to do, guys. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have a long way to go before we have to cover the DreamWorks animated series.
Yeah,
That's a
so,
lot of stuff.
yeah, we still got a lot of stuff to do in this. But, yeah, so what are we going to be covering next week?
All right. So, from what I can see on the list of DreamWorks movies that we're going to be covering up, so we just covered up The Croods in honor of Thanksgiving, and we covered up Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. So, according to my list, the next movie we're going to be talking about is Sinbad Legend of the Seven Seas,
Yeah, speak of the
which
devil.
is yeah, speak of the devil. This is actually the last 2D animated film that DreamWorks did right before they just went full 3D.
Yeah, and there's part of me that believes we're going to find out why that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, from me, Aaron,
And Patricia.
take care, and bye-bye for now.
See you later. See you later. See you later. See you later.